After being rejected by Alpha Asher, Genevieve falls into a coma, her mind and body severely affected. However, upon waking, she discovers her family is gone and her world has collapsed. Asher claims he never slept with Wendy, and Genevieve can feel the sincerity in his touch. Amidst this struggle of emotions and power, will Genevieve accept Asher's explanation? Can their relationship be mended? Join our pack. Subscribe to start your adventure. Chapter 7. Genevieve right after the rejection eve. Sean's concerned voice filled my ears. I couldn't hold it together. I let out a sob, and Sean wrapped his arms around Mesh H. What's wrong? Eve Sean whispered in my ear. I shook my head, signaling that I didn't want to talk about it. Want to go outside? He asked softly. I nodded and smiled. Being outside always made me feel better. I followed Joel at the back door, and we walked through the forest. I silently cried while Sean walked beside me. We were walking for almost an hour, when a sharp pain hit my chest. I fell to the ground and my breathing became ragged. Sean knelt down next to me, but I couldn't hear anything. I saw his lips moving, but I couldn't hear his voice. The pain hurt worse than Asher rejecting me. I shut my eyes, hoping that it would stop, but instead, I had a vision. It was like looking through another person's eyes. There was a redhead. I never seen her before. And then I opened my eyes, and another wave of pain hit me. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. This wave was quicker, but more painful. I took deep breaths and steadied my breathing. Can you hear me? Sean asked. I nodded and continued to slow my beating heart. What the hell was that? I asked Sean. He frowned. I've only seen it once. He trailed off. I pushed the subject. Do you remember Tori? Tori was the pack slut of the Royal Pack. She wasn't really bad, but she got around a lot. Her mate rejected her. Then she moved. No one has seen or heard from her since. I nodded. I saw the same thing happen to her. After her mate rejected her, he slept with another girl, and that's what happened, he explained. I sat down against a tree. You found your mate, Sean stated. I nodded even though it wasn't a question. And Sean trailed off. I nodded. He rejected me. I choked out as tears began to blur my vision. I'm so sorry, Eve, Sean said as he hugged me tightly. I clung to him like my life depended on it. Which it probably does. What if I die? I asked after a while. Wolves can't live without their mates. You won't die, Sean reassured me. You're strong enough to get back from this. That guy is an ass. He didn't deserve you to begin with. I smiled at Sean. He gave me a small smile. If we headed back to the pack house. We split up and went into our own guest rooms. I laid in my bed and thought about today. Meeting Asher, the pain, everything. I decided that I wouldn't let him affect me. I don't need him. I don't want him if he's really what I saw today. This was just a waste of the moon goddess's time. I woke up at 6. I got dressed and went downstairs. Brian was sitting at the table with Sean. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I greeted them. How'd you sleep? Sean asked. Orange Fanta and hot Cheetos. I nodded my head and he left to go to the store. You hungry? Brian asked while getting out to bowls. I smiled at him. Are you gonna make me breakfast? I questioned. Brian nodded. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. You're my guest. I laughed and sat at the table. A few minutes later, Brian put a bowl of cereal in front of me. I would cook, But I think you won alive. I laughed and thanked him. We ate our cereal in silence when Ryan walked in. Morning sunshine. Ryan glared at me and poured himself a cup of coffee. We're leaving at noon, Ryan informed me. I nodded. The sooner we leave, the sooner I get away from Asher. Is the Alpha in? Ryan asked Brian. I'll go get him, Brian said as he disappeared from the room. I continued to eat. Even after Brian returned, I heard footsteps, and the scent of citrus and grass filled my nose. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I'm sorry for keeping you waiting. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I focused on my cereal. Let's get started, shall we? I could feel his gaze on me, but I never looked up. Brian said something, and Ryan started to talk about the council. But Asher stopped right mid-sentence. I'm sorry. He apologized to Ryan. This is a meeting. You have no business here. Asher hissed at me, making my head snap up to him. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Brian gaped at his alpha, while Ryan let out a vicious growl. That is my niece you are talking to, he said in a low voice. His eyes started to turn an ochre shade. She can be here. Asher introduced himself to me, but I ignored him. They continued with the meeting, and I turned them out. Ryan and Brian both got up and walked away, leaving me with my ex-mate. Genevieve. Asher started. Oh, now he wants to speak. Is he serious right now? He most definitely didn't want to talk last night. He took one look at me and didn't even ask my name before rejecting me. Apollo, oh hell no. Don't give me that crap. You just want me, so you can keep your precious title, I snapped. That's not true. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I waited for him to explain. He didn't even try to come up with an excuse. Unbelievable, I mumbled. Babe, I'm back. Sean shouted from the front door. Perfect timing. I glared at Asher. Babe. Sean asked, concerned as he set the bag of chips and soda on the table. He looked back and forth from Asher and I. I moved my gaze away from my ex-mate and softly smiled at my best friend. Hey Sean. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. It's him, isn't it? Sean asked through the mind link. His hands were wrapped tightly in fists, and his jaw was clenched. He's the alpha, so don't do anything stupid, I warned him. Sean growled and pointed at Asher. Him, he asked. I reluctantly nodded my head in confirmation. Sean marched up to the alpha and punched him straight in the face. Chapter 8. Genevieve. Sean's fist hit Asher's face, causing his head to snap back. I gasped and put my hand over my mouth. My eyes were wide and staring at the scene in front of me. Sean smirked triumphantly, and Asher was beyond angry. Sean walked closer to me and put his arm around me, making Asher even more mad. He let out a growl and his eyes turned pitch black. Bad doggy. I scolded him. What did you just say? Asher asked through gritted teeth. I pulled away from Sean and took a bold step towards my mate. I said, bad doggy. I stood straight, challenging him. Glared at me. I like that, Nitrava. You better watch your mouth. Your uncle isn't here to protect you. I punched him hard in the stomach. It was so hard that my fist felt like I just punched fire. He grunted and bent over. Does it look like I need his protection? I whispered in his ear. He shut up and his eyes flashed golden. You are hanging from a thread, little mate. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. As his wolf fought for control, his eyes kept shifting from bright gold to the normal blue-grey color. Ignoring the fact that he called me little, I crossed my arms over my chest. Does it look like I care? I retorted. You're playing with fire, he informed me. What? Are you going to hurt me? I tilted my head up and looked him straight in the eyes. There is nothing that you can do that would hurt. Nothing would compare to what you did yesterday. I failed at hiding the hurt in my voice. The alpha's niece can't take a little rejection. He asked in a teasing voice. I gritted my teeth together. You know that's not it. He just stared at me. You don't know, do you? Sean spoke up. Asher took a step away from me and shook his head. She almost died, Sean stated bluntly. Okay. Dramatic. I felt like I was dying. I in no way was on the brink of death. What how? Asher asked, almost sounding concerned. You can't reject me, sleep with someone else, shout at me, then act like you actually give a shit. My entire body burned with anger and resentment. This man just pissed me off to no ends. I narrowed my eyes at the alpha. You, Sean growled. Asher tilted his head in confusion. It's your fault. You almost killed her. He spat. Asher turned his gaze to me. What's he talking about? He inquired. I felt it. You and the redhead. I saw it and I felt it. I felt pain. I fought back tears as I watched his reaction. He almost looked sorry. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. You felt it. I nodded. That's not my fault. How isn't that your fault? Sean shouted at him. Asher glared at him and looked at me. You could have accepted it. Referring to the rejection. You wouldn't feel it, you just accepted it. So this is my fault? I asked, exasperated. Asher nodded. Pretty much. You see, Eve. Ryan cut me off. I turned around and watched as he rushed up to me. The castle. It's under attack. That turned the fight into a meager situation. My heart dropped and my mind cleared from this stupid man in front of me. The only things on my mind were my family, friends, and pack. People could be dying. Thoughts and memories floated back into my mind. I imagined seeing that same man with the decapitated head, except it was my mother's head. My heart pounded in my chest. I felt my hands begin to sweat. I shook the image out of my mind. I didn't need any details. I ran outside and shifted into my royal white wolf. I ran faster than I ever did before. Driving back would be at least a few hours. I ran so fast. We got to the castle half an hour later. The smell of werewolves hit me. But they weren't from the royal pack. They weren't rogues either. I shifted back into my human form, quickly slipped on a long shirt, and walked toward the gates. There were bodies everywhere, some in wolf form, some in human form. Some dead, some barely breathing. I got to the gates and Carson, Ryan's beta, walked out of the castle. He was covered in blood, but none of it was his. A crying Jordan trailed behind him. I walked closer to the castle, but they both shook their heads at me. No, I said, barely over a whisper. Where's Matthew? I asked to no one specific. I looked around as if I would find his body on the floor. Carson approached me cautiously. I got him and Jordan to the safe house, before anything happened. He's with Parker's mate, Carson answered. My currents. Afraid of the answer. Jordan let out sobbing. Ryan wrapped his arms around her. No. I shook my head, refusing to believe it. Sean lightly placed his hand on my shoulder. I kept shaking my head. Sean pulled me into his embrace, but I shoved him away. I walked to the doors of the castle. I reached for the handle, but Ryan grabbed my wrist. "Don't, Eve," he pleaded. I shook my wrist out of his grasp and pulled open the door. I screamed my lungs out and fell to my knees. Ryan lifted me to my feet, but I screamed when he reached out for me. I did that to anyone who came closer than an arm's length. Ryan gave up and left with Jordan. Carson went to take care of a few things. Sean stayed in the castle with me, but he kept his distance. I bawled my eyes out for over an hour, never moving, just crying. I talked to them the day before yesterday. It was supposed to be every day, but I wasn't in the best mood yesterday. I racked my brain trying to remember the last thing they said to me. I remembered all the memories of them, and I realized that we wouldn't be able to make any more of those memories. "I need to make a call," Sean announced as he stood up and walked out the front door. My parents were killed. Their bodies were torn apart, a bloodied mess on the floor of the castle. I kept blinking, hoping that the scene in front of me would change, begging the moon goddess to let this be an awful dream, but it didn't help. I shouted at the top of my lungs until I couldn't breathe, and I passed out on the floor. Chapter 9. Asher, so this is my fault? Genevieve asked, exasperated. I nodded. Pretty much. She could have saved herself from the hurt if she just accepted my rejection and moved on. Obviously she moved on, but she didn't accept my rejection. Her fist clenched at her sides. "You refusee, Eve," a voice shouted, cutting off whatever insult she was about to throw at me. Ryan rushed into the kitchen. "The castle. It's under attack." Ryan barely finished his sentence and Genevieve took off running. I followed them into my backyard, where they all shifted. Ryan's wolf was a large black, alpha wolf. Sean's wolf was a light brown color, and Genevieve, her wolf was pure white. Then it hit me. She doesn't have alpha blood. She has royal blood. My mate is a royal. Brian, I called through the mind link. That is my name. Did you know? I questioned the smart ass. "No, what?" "That Genevieve is a royal." "What?" Brian exclaimed. I told him everything, starting with yesterday, and ending with seeing her shift. "You idiot." Brian shouted at me. She could probably kill me, and just leave my pack to be rogues. I can't believe that I rejected a royal. God, I'm so stupid. I was chosen to have a royal mate, but I ruined it. The moon goddess is probably frowning down at me as I speak. I wouldn't have rejected her if I knew she was a royal, I argued. The royal family would have every reason to destroy me. I'm not talking about that. Brian snapped. "Then what?" I asked. "You are so stupid." Alpha Ryan said that the castle is under attack. Brian told me. "So, your mate is a royal. And where does the royal family live?" Brian asked, like he was talking to a child. "They live in the castle," I stated. Then I put it all together. Her family is under attack. I shouted. "What do I do?" I asked Brian for advice. "Sorry, man, but you can't do anything. You rejected her. You don't have a say in what happens now." I can't just sit here and I was cut off and I started gasping for air. It felt like I literally got the air knocked out of me. "Ash?" Brian asked. I blocked him out and steadied my breathing. For some reason, I felt like crying. It was weird. I shut my eyes and saw blood. A lot of it. Blood and dead wolves. I snapped my eyes open when my phone started ringing. I pulled it out of my front pocket and looked at the number. It was out of state. I answered it. "Hello, Alpha Asher," Sean's voice said through the phone. "What do you want?" He better not be calling to tell me I'm an asshole or something. "It's Genevieve." I think she knew. There was a piercing scream that lasted almost a whole minute. I heard a thud, like he dropped his phone. I strained my ears to hear what was going on. People were calling my mate's name. There were a lot of footsteps, and a child was crying. I heard shuffling, and Sean's breathing filled my ears. What happened to her? I asked frantically. You need to get over here, Sean demanded. I held the phone to my ear with my shoulder as I started walking closer to the forest. What happened? I repeated. She's weak. She needs her mate, Sean said just before he ended the call. Brian, what happened? Brian asked. I need to help Genevieve. You're in charge of the pack. I told him. I didn't wait for a response, and I blocked him out. I walked into the forest and shifted into my black wolf. I ran to the castle. I have no idea what was going on, but I had a feeling that it wasn't good. I got to the royal pack lines and about 20 wolves came out. Some in wolf form, others human. They all got in a fighting stance. One man stepped forward. He had familiar features, but I couldn't quite point who he looked like. Who are you? Alpha Asher Reed of the Blue Moon Pack, Dad. Let him in, Sean's voice said. He walked out from behind the other men and motioned for me to follow him. I trailed behind him while the warriors watched me warily. Sean, why is he here? Sean's father asked. He's Genevieve's mate. Whether we like it or not, she needs him to survive, he replied stiffly. How would he help? A warrior asked. Sean sighed. Just by being near each other. Mates give each other strength. Whether it be emotional or physical, Genevieve needs both. Everyone was quiet as we walked to the castle. What the hell is going on? Sean led me in the castle and we walked through hallways, until we stopped in front of a planed door. I could feel my mate's presence. Her scent was strong. I listened through the door. Her heartbeat was weak. Sean opened the door and we walked inside. Genevieve was lying on the hospital bed with machines and wires attached to her. What happened? I asked Sean as I took one of Genevieve's hands in mine. She was cold. I rubbed my thumbs on her hand, hoping to give her warmth. She's in a coma, Sean stated. I frowned as I got an achy feeling in my chest. How long until she heals? The doctor said that she may never heal, he said sadly. What? I exclaimed. Sit down, Sean demanded. I sat in the chair by the bed. I'll tell you what happened. But no interruptions, I nodded in agreement. She was weak after you rejected her. She got even weaker when you slept with that red-headed SLU. Wendy. Her name is Wendy. Sean glared at me for interrupting. Sean continued his story. You damaged her wolf. She wasn't responding at all. The doctor believes that her wolf is close to death. And without her wolf, Genevieve would be unable to survive. It only got worse, he sighed and rubbed his face. The castle was attacked. The king and queen didn't survive. We killed all the attackers, except those who were inside with the king and queen. We decided that the princess will choose what to do with them. I don't understand what any of this has to do with Genevieve. I wasn't finished, he stated. We ran all the way over here. The fight was over, but Genevieve saw the king's and queen's dead bodies, though she fainted at the sight of it. I concluded. Sean shook his head. She fainted because she was hurt. I looked at my mate, checking for scratches or blood. Not physically, Sean assured me. The king and queen were her parents, and she saw what happened to them. She had to heal mentally. Unfortunately, her body thought it would be best to slip into a coma. She saw her parents' dead bodies. Sean frowned and nodded. So where do I come in? She will need you near her. You can help her heal, and you, Wolf, might be able to contact hers, Sean explained. Can you do it? I asked Gavin. I'll try for our mate, Gavin responded stiffly. He's obviously still mad at me. Well deserved. I have to go, Sean said as he walked out the room. Thank the moon goddess he left. I don't want to be in the same room as my mate's boyfriend. That's just odd. I heard the door close and I scooted my chair closer to my mate. I took her hand in mine and rubbed my thumbs on the back. I'm so sorry. This is my fault. You wouldn't be here, like this, if I didn't reject you, I whispered to her still form. Guilt, sadness, and worry filled my whole body. I don't know if you can hear me or not. People say that when you're in a coma, you can still hear things. I am so sorry. I take it back. I take it all back. I gently kissed her hand. I take back the rejection. I take back saying it was your fault. It's my fault. I was an idiot for hurting you. And I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. I promise I'll be a better mate. I'll do whatever you want. Just please wake up. I begged on the verge of breaking down. She didn't show any reaction as I spoke. I felt guilty, angry, and worried. It's my fault that she was weak when she got here. I was so pissed at myself for doing this to her. And I was worried that she would never wake up from this. I looked at her face and pushed her hair away from her eyes. Please. Chapter 10 Asher. I heard a soft knock on the door. A pregnant, and I mean very pregnant, woman walked in with a child in her arms. I let go of my mate and walked up to the woman. Hi. I'm Jordan. Ryan's mate, she introduced herself. I'm Alpha Usher of the Blue Moon Pack. I'm also Genevieve's mate. At the mention of Genevieve, the kid took his head off of Jordan's shoulder. He studied me for a moment. His blue eyes watched me. You're Eve's mate. I smiled at the kid and nodded. Are you gonna help her? He sniffled. Jordan was struggling with the kid, so I grabbed him from her. She thanked me and walked towards Genevieve. She kissed her forehead and whispered lowly, so I couldn't listen. Not that I would. I feel like I should leave if someone wants to talk to Genevieve. I carried the kid to the chair and sat him on my lap. Auntie Jordan said that my sister is sick. He rubbed his eyes as he cried. She's gonna be okay, right? He looked up at me, his eyes piercing through mine. I gently wiped his tears with my thumbs. I don't know, kid, I told him honestly. Tears began to gather in my own eyes. I'll do whatever I can to help her, I declared. Promise. I quickly nodded. Come on, Matthew. I think you need to rest, Jordan said. When are Mommy and Daddy coming home? To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Matthew, all getting of my lap. Jordan turned away from us, and I faintly heard her sob. He obviously doesn't know. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. The kid turned around to look at me. How about you let your auntie say goodnight to Genevieve? You can show me your room, and I'll tuck you in. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I don't want to leave Genevieve, but it won't take long. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Can I say goodnight to you first? I nodded and he walked towards his sister. He tried whispering so I couldn't hear. Tried being the key word. Your mate is gonna tuck me in. I like him. Good night, Eve. Feel better. He kissed his sister's cheek and walked to me. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Matthew nodded and grabbed my hand. As we walked out, I turned to Jordan, who mouthed, "Thank you." I nodded and Matthew led me out the room. He opened the door to a Toy Story-themed room. The walls were a light blue color with small yellow stars scattered around. There was a toy box overfilled with cars, Legos, balls, and other toys. The floor was surprisingly not covered in toys. His bed was made, showing off the Toy Story bed covers. Matthew let go of my hand and pulled the covers up. He slid onto the small bed and got comfortable. He pulled his arms out from under the blanket and motioned for me to come closer. I started walking. While he scooted over, he patted the side of the bed for me to sit. "Can you tell me a story?" Matthew asked. I nodded and recalled a story my mom used to tell me. A very long time ago, there was a mean alpha. He wasn't a good leader, but then he met his mate. She was scared of him. He changed just for her. The alpha was nicer, and his pack got stronger. The power of mates and the power of love helped him. I told the gist of the story. Obviously, I'm the worst storyteller ever. However, Matthew still let out a yawn. I got up and started tucking him in. "Did Eve help you?" Matthew asked sleepily. "She did. I wasn't very nice when I met her. I admitted, but I'm changing. Hopefully." "Do you love her?" Matthew asked. Before I could answer, his eyes started to close and his breathing steadied as he fell asleep. I stood in his room, thinking about his question. Do I love her? I'm attracted to her. I want to protect her. I'm trying to wake her up by being here. But love. I shook the thoughts out of my head and headed back to my... I walked in and noticed that Jordan already left. I sat on the chair by Genevieve's bed and held her hand. I stared at her pale body and began to cry. "I'm so sorry." I apologized over and over again. This is all my fault and I will never forget it. I kissed her hand. "Please wake up. I'll make it better. I'll fix this. Just wake up," I pleaded. Her heart rate was constant, never faltering as I talked. She never moved, not one twitch. I can't help but think about her never waking up. She could die from this, and it will be my fault. My mate's death would be on my conscience. Chapter 11. Asher. It's been 2 weeks. 2 weeks since I had that fight with Eve. 2 weeks since I found out she's a royal. 2 weeks of her being in a coma. And honestly, I'm scared. She hasn't been getting any better. She's gotten worse. A few days ago, she had a seizure. I was talking to her. Then her heart stopped beating. I called for help and the doc came in. He was about to start CPR when her heart monitor went crazy. Her body started shaking. It scared me so much. It was like a scene out of some movie where someone gets possessed or something. She was just shaking. Other than that, she hasn't moved. She's still pale. I haven't seen her beautiful blue eyes in 2 weeks. And the last time I saw them, they were filled with hate. Hate that was pointed at me. Every day since I got here, I apologized to my mate. I begged her to wake up. To my agent extraordinaire, Mended, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Me, the alpha of the Blue Moon Pack. To my agent extraordinaire, Mended, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I just need her to wake up. I need her to tell me that she's all right, that I have a chance to fix this, that I have a chance to be a better mate. Everyone comes in every day. Jordan and Ryan will visit her. Jordan seems to like me, and Ryan is slowly warming up to me. Matthew always comes in after he wakes up and before he goes to bed. Unsurprisingly, Sean visits. I leave the room whenever someone new comes in. I know that they need privacy. Even if it's an unmated male, like Sean, he knows that I rejected her. And he is technically her boyfriend. It's no surprise that he doesn't like me. But the feeling is mutual. I woke up when I heard the door open. Matthew walked into the room. He and I have actually gotten along pretty well. I learned stuff about him, and he learned stuff about me. Matthew even told me some stories about Eve, and he told me to stop calling her Genevieve. Apparently she likes people calling her Eve. Her parents rarely called her Eve. But I tried to avoid the topic of parents while talking to Matthew. He thinks that his parents are on a trip. I couldn't tell a 6-year-old kid that his parents got murdered. Whether he knows or not is up to Genevieve. Hey Ish, Matthew said, picked him up off the floor. I smiled at the nickname. Hey kiddo, to my agent extraordinaire, Mylin Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. How do you sleep? He glanced at his sister's skinny, pale body. It happened again, he said sadly. Ever since he had a seizure, Matthew has been getting nightmares. Some would be at a funeral. Others would be of seeing her die. It's too much for a 6-year-old to experience. I'm not even sure he understands his dreams. It's gonna be okay. She's gonna get better. To my agent extraordinaire, Mylin Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Trying to convince myself as well as Matthew. He started playing with Eve's blanket. Auntie Jordan said that Uncle Isaac and Auntie Pate are visiting. Matthew changed the subject. Who's Uncle Isaac? Mommy's brother. Auntie Jordan said that him and Auntie Page are gonna be king and queen while Mommy and Daddy are gone. Matthew explained. To my agent extraordinaire, Mylin Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Matthew nodded. When are they coming? I inquired. Tonight. Auntie Jordan said at dinner time. Matthew answered. Can you do me a favor then? Matthew nodded his head, and his blonde hair bounced up and down. Can you take a bath and clean your room? But that's 2 things he held up 2 fingers and waved them in my face. You said a favor. Smart ass. Do me 2 favors then, I said, showing him 2 fingers. Matthew sighed and nodded. You owe me big time, he mumbled. I chuckled as he walked out the room. I looked at Eve. Good morning. Wait, I glanced at the clock that said 12:13. Or good afternoon. I said, and kissed her forehead. I guess I'm meeting your uncle today. I nervously laughed. I should get ready. I'll see you later, I said and walked out the room. I always try talking to her as if she wasn't in a coma. It made things less saddening. Jordan and Ryan set me up with a guest room. Not that I use it or anything. That's just where I change and keep my stuff. I sleep in the chair by Eve's bed. I walked into the room and grabbed a fluffy towel. I took a quick shower and looked for clothes. I settled on a blue, grey button-up and black jeans. I tucked in the shirt and put on my black belt. I walked out the room and towards Eve's room. Not her bedroom, just the hospital room. I walked in and saw someone sobbing by Eve's bedside. Jordan. Her head snapped up to me and she quickly wiped her tears with the back of her hands. To my agent extraordinaire, Mylin Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I didn't mean to interrupt. I'll be outside. I started closing the door when Jordan stopped me. No, she said. Jordan motioned for me to come in. I slowly made way to my usual seat and sat down. You don't have to be sorry. And you didn't interrupt anything. I'm just an emotional wreck. She gave me a sheepish smile. Well, you are pregnant, I pointed out. Her mouth twitched upwards. What are you naming her? Matthew told me that his cousin is going to be a girl. He's smart for a little boy. Ali, she answered. Her tone said that the name had some importance, but I didn't ask. Beautiful name, I complimented. Jordan nodded. It was the Queen's. She was supposed to be the godmother, I was right. A few tears streamed down her face. I felt the need to keep her mind off of her friend. When's she due? I inquired. Into weak she rubbed her belly and smiled. "What are you all dressed up for?" she questioned when she looked up at me. I'm meeting my mate's uncle, who may or may not want to kill me." I nervously rubbed my neck. Jordan laughed so hard. Tears began to fall from her eyes. She suddenly stopped. "What's wrong?" I asked as I rushed up to her. Her face broke out into a smile. "She's kicking," Jordan said as she held her stomach. She grabbed one of my hands and placed it on her stomach. I felt a small movement, like someone cooked my hand. "Wow," I breathed out in awe. I pulled my hand away from her stomach. "That's amazing," I said honestly. She nodded in agreement before she started laughing again. "Why do you keep laughing?" I questioned. She let out one last giggle before answering. "You're afraid of Isaac wanting to hurt you?" she asked in complete disbelief. I nodded. Whenever I dated someone, their fathers and uncles threatened me. Like a lot, I admitted. I didn't date that many people, but the few girls I did date had very protective male relatives. "Don't worry about Isaac. I think you can take him," she smirked. I felt like I was missing part of a story, but I didn't ask about it. Jordan left a while after Matthew came in. Now him and I were sitting down and playing cards. "Do you have a 5? I questioned. Matthew shook his head. "Liar. Go fish," he said. There wasn't even cards left. There was just my card and his card, so they had to be a pair. I played along and dramatically sighed. "Do you have a Matthew asked. I faked a pout as I handed him my card. "That's not fair. You cheated," I exclaimed childishly. "Did not," he argued. "Did too." "No, I didn't." "Yes, you did." Noise. Noi. "Is someone being a sore loser?" an unknown voice asked. I got up and pushed Matthew behind me. I went into a fighting position and growled at the man in front of me. He looked in his early 30s with dark blonde hair. He was short than me, but he didn't look taken back by my growl. He looked completely calm. "Uncle Isaac," Matthew exclaimed and ran around me. He jumped on my man, who easily caught him. "Hey Matthew," the man said. "Who's your friend?" He nodded to me. Matthew started bouncing in the man's arms. "That's Asher. He's Eve's mate Tash." "This is Uncle Isaac," Matthew shouted. I chuckled and walked towards the pair. I held my hand out for Isaac to shake. "Alpha Asher, Reed of the Blue Moon Pack." "Sir," I introduced myself. "I'm Isaac. Don't call me sir. I sound old." He chuckled. I nodded. "So you're Eve's mate?" "Yes, I am," I confirmed. "You better be treating her well, or else I'll stick your tail up your Isaac." A woman's voice scolded. A short woman walked around Isaac and smiled at me. "I'm so sorry about my mate." "Don't worry, he's just talk." She laughed. "I'm Paige. Auntie Paige." Matthew questioned. She nodded. "What happened to your hair?" "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nelben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." Paige laughed as she grabbed him from Isaac's arms. "'Cause I cut it," she stated as Matthew reached out to touch the ends of her hair. Matthew nodded. "Wanna see my room? I cleaned it all by myself," Matthew stated proudly. Paige nodded and they left the room. Isaac walked towards my mate and froze. I didn't know she was this bad. He breathed out. "Yeah," I said quietly. He grabbed Eve's hand and rubbed it. "She's healing, right?" I didn't respond. "She's getting better." After another moment of silence, Isaac spoke again. "What are her chances?" "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nelben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." "Her wolf is weak. She can't help if you lie," explained. "So what does that mean? There is no way of telling if she'll survive this." I whispered softly. Isaac nodded. I stayed silent, while it all soaked in. He pulled a chair closer to the bed and sat down. Hey Eve. It's Uncle Isaac. I'm Huron. Should I go? Isaac shook his head. You're her mate. You can stay. I nodded and slowly sat on a chair. Wake up, Eve. Please. You can't leave yet. You have a mate. You have Sean. I let a low growl at the mention of him. Sorry. I apologized when Isaac looked at me. He raised a questioning eyebrow. I'm a very jealous alpha. I admitted. Isaac laughed. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I nodded. Sean. I nodded again. Why would you be jealous of? He exclaimed before he laughed harder. He looked at my mate. He thinks you're dating Sean. He chuckled. Wait. She's not. Isaac shook his head. But he called her babe, I stated. And she calls him Coco. Isaac laughed. They have been best friends since they were in diapers. Nothing less. Nothing more. I can assure you of that. That arsehole actually made me believe that they were dating. Well, I guess I kinda deserved it. I really deserved it, actually. Isaac turned serious and looked at my mate. You need to wake up. Your mate looks crazy, he said with a light laugh. What are you talking about? Have you looked in a mirror? Isaac asked. I shook my head, causing him to chuckle. You obviously haven't been sleeping a whole 9 hours, and you didn't shave. I childishly crossed my arms and frowned. Matthew might be rubbing off on me a little. Isaac ignored me and continued to talk to Eve. This guy is crazy. Anyways, you need to wake up. I know that you lost your parents, but you still have people here that need you. The werewolves need a queen. Your friends need you. Your mate needs you. Matthew needs you. At the mention of her brother, Eve's heart rate went up, then back down. I stared at her wide-eyed. Eve, can you hear me? No response. It had to be something that Isaac said. Keep talking about Matthew. I demanded. Isaac nodded. You're the only family that Matthew has left. Her heartbeat went up again. I smiled at my mate. He's gonna need you when he gets older, to tell him about your parents. Her heart rate increased, but it was too high. Something wasn't right. Doctor. Crap, I exclaimed. The doctor leaves at 5, I stated. And it's 6:30, Isaac shouted. I nodded. Then, the beeping slowed. Her heart rate was higher than before, but it was still at a constant 90 beats per minute. We should get someone to check her. I nodded in agreement and we began to walk out the room. Then I heard it. I finally heard it after 2 weeks. Her voice. Her sweet angelic voice. Uncle Isaac. Chapter 12. Genevieve. I woke up and my eyelids felt heavy. I used all my strength to open them, but it was like something was weighing it down. I tried moving my arm to my face, but it wouldn't move. What the hell is happening to me? All I remember is being at the Blue Moon Pack. Then me and Asher got in a fight. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Ryan came in. The memories hit me all at once. The attack. My parents. The last thing I did was scream. I felt my body uncontrollably thrash around. I tried to stay still, but my body shook harder and faster. Everything was in pain. It felt like someone was pouring a bucket of hot water on me, like it was burning me. Doctor. Someone get the doctor. A voice shouted. I felt hands on my body. They held me down. but my body was still twitching and I couldn't see anything. Hold her still. A voice demanded. The hands tightened on my wrists and something held down my legs. It felt like they had their legs on mine, while they gripped my arms. I felt a sharp pain in my neck. Then I stopped shaking. I felt calm, like I was on the verge of sleeping, but I felt wide awake. My body was sleeping, but my brain was still going crazy. I felt the person who was restraining me loosen their grip. Everything was still dark. I slowly fell into a peaceful sleep. I woke up when something wet hit my hand. I felt fully rested and refreshed. I tried to open my eyes, but the darkness still wouldn't go away, like my eyes were glued shut. Drips of a liquid hit my hand. It felt like raindrops. I heard a sob and hiccups. Someone was crying. "Baby, please wake up." Jordan's voice filled my ears. "We need you. Please. Just open your eyes." Her voice broke at the end. I wanted nothing more than to open my eyes and hug the woman that was like family. "I need you to help me paint the nursery." I was always indecisive about these things. "Ryan's no help. I need a girl's opinion. I need your mum." More teardrops hit my arm. Jordan pressed her forehead to my hand and sobbed. I just wanted to wake up and comfort her. I hate hearing her in all this pain, and not being able to do anything about it. "Jordan," a voice said. I swear, that sounds exactly like Asher. "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, hearts out thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." I didn't mean to interrupt. "I'll be outside. That's definitely Asher." Jordan sniffled and she said something to Asher that I couldn't quite make out. Asher commented on her being pregnant and asked what she'll name the baby. Lynn. I wanted so badly to just answer for her, to say anything, to do anything, but nothing worked. I was shocked at Jordan's answer. My mother's name. I felt the darkness start to take over my mind, and I fought it. I suddenly got extremely exhausted, and just let it take over. "You need to wake up. Your mate looks crazy," a familiar voice said. "It can't be him. He's in England." "Why would my mom's brother be here?" I heard a scoff. "What are you talking about?" Asher asked. "Have you looked in a mirror?" The voice asked. I heard my mother's brother chuckle. "You obviously haven't been sleeping a whole 9 hours, and you didn't shave. This guy is crazy." "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." "You need to wake up. I know that you lost your parents, but you still have people here that need you. The werewolves need a queen. Your friends need you. Your mate needs you. Matthew needs you," Uncle Isaac said softly. I suddenly got a burst of energy. "Eve. Can you hear me?" Asher asked. I wanted to respond, but the energy was gone. "Keep talking about Matthew," Asher demanded. "You're the only family that Matthew has left. There's the energy again. He's gonna need you when he gets older, to tell him about your parents." I got more energy. It was like electricity going through me. "Need to help Matthew?" I faintly heard Ingrid mumble. "Doctor," Asher shouted. "Crap." I heard his voice and my uncle's voice talking. "You need to calm down," Ingrid begged me. I focused on steadying my heart that was going crazy. "Thank you," she said in a stronger voice. "What's happening?" I asked. "I'm not sure." "Asher's wolf helped heal me. You should be able to open your eyes now," Ingrid said. I opened my eyes and was blinded by a bright light. I blinked rapidly until my eyes adjusted. I looked around and saw Asher walking out. There was a man next to him with a head full of familiar dark blonde hair. "Uncle Isaac." I called out. They both turned around and rushed up to me. My uncle wrapped his arms around me. I tried to hug him back, but there were red and black wires hooked up to me, an IV in my hand. You scared me, Uncle Isaac admitted. Sniffling, I pulled away from him. What are you doing here? Wiping tears from my eyes, Uncle Isaac scratched the back of his neck. Do you remember what happened? He asked hesitantly. I frowned and nodded. When you didn't wake up, there needed to be temporary rulers. I was just out for a few days. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Uncle Isaac looked at me in confusion. Eve, he said softly, you've been out for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. I felt my heart speed up and Uncle Isaac was yanked away from me. Asha stood next to me and tried touching me, but I flinched away. Why are you here? I spit out. He looked hurt by my words. I'm here because my mate was hurt. He freaking rejected me. Us? Your mate? I laughed bitterly. We are not mates. What? Uncle Isaac exclaimed. Who the hell are you then? He yelled. She's just confused. We are not. I am not confused. My heart rate sped up with every word. You rejected me. Uncle Isaac pinned Asher to the wall. It looked slightly amusing since Uncle Isaac is shorter. I would laugh if I wasn't pissed off by Asher's presence. You rejected my niece. His voice boomed, probably echoing through the whole castle. Asher growled, making my uncle release him. Arthur perk. Lucky bastard. He took a step closer to the bed, but I moved as far as the wires would allow me to. He was pained by the action, and stopped moving. Can you give us a minute? Asher asked. 60 seconds start when I walk out that door, Uncle Isaac said. I looked at him and begged him with my eyes not to leave me. He shot me an apologetic smile and walked out the room. Evers had trailed off. You have 50 more seconds. I warned him. Don't be like that. I avoided looking at him and started playing with the blanket. Please. I am so sorry. I should have never rejected you. Well, why the hell did he? 40 seconds. I shouldn't have slept with Wendy. I know that. I know that I hurt you. I regret it more than anything in the world, he said in a strained voice. 30. Would you stop there? Asher shouted. Naturally. I whimpered. No, Eve. I didn't mean to scream. He apologized. Stupid mate, Bond. Making me all sad because us. 25. I choked out while looking at the wall. Maybe if I don't look at him, I won't feel like this. Eve, just look at me. Asher begged. I shook my head and tightly shut my eyes. I'm sorry, Asher said before turning around. I opened my eyes in time to see him walking out. Uncle Isaac nodded at him and entered the room. He still had 17 seconds, Uncle Isaac said, trying to lighten the mood. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I started bawling. All the hurt came out. From the rejection. From the redhead. Wendy. From my parents. In 2 days, my world came crashing down. My mate hurt me. My parents died. And I went into a coma. Uncle Isaac rocked me back and forth while I cried. He slowly released me when the door opened. Instantly, Jordan and Ryan rushed over to me. Thank God you're okay. Jordan hugged me and cried on my shoulder. Ryan kissed my head. Welcome back to the living, kid, he said. Eve Matthew's soft voice rang through my ears. I heard tiny footsteps. Then Matthew jumped on my bed. Eve. He cried and wrapped his arms around my neck. Tears of joy spilled out of my eyes. We'll give you some space, Uncle Isaac said. The 3 adults walked out, leaving me with my brother. Hey, Squirt, I said and smothered him in kisses. He wiped everywhere I kissed, causing a pout to appear on my face. Matthew chuckled and kissed my cheek, causing me to grin. He did it, Matthew said in a wee-hoo. I looked at him in confusion. What are you talking about? Matthew mindlessly played with my fingers. Ash did it. As has an Asher, my ex-mate. I raised an eyebrow at my brother. He saved you. Chapter 13, Genevieve. I stared at my brother in confusion. What do you mean? He promised that he will make you better. Matthew grinned. And you are awake now. He squeezed my waist, but was still curious. So, you've been talking to my mate? I questioned. Matthew nodded with a smile on his face. He is nice. I like him, he said happily. Do Mommy and Daddy know that he's staying here? My heart dropped at the mention of my parents. I wonder what they told him. I don't know. I've been asleep, remember. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Did Auntie Jordan tell you what happened? Matthew asked. I shook my head. Mommy and Daddy went on a vacation. I've been staying with Auntie Jordan and Uncle Ryan. But she cries a lot. Uncle Ryan said it's because she has a baby girl in her tummy. Matthew rambled. He started telling me about what he did while I was sick. Apparently, he and my mate are best friends. The thought pains me. The last of my immediate family is best friends with Asa. But I'm thankful that he kept Matthew company. He was probably lonely while I was out. What's all this? Matthew asked, tugging on the wires. I actually don't know. I shrugged and started to pull them off. The machine started beeping and Matthew started screaming to make it stop. I covered my own ears. Why is it so loud? The royal doctor rushed in with Jordan, Isaac, and Ryan behind him. They all frantically looked around until their eyes landed on me. Everyone visibly relaxed and the doctor shut off the machine. Matthew whimpered in my arms, clutching his ears. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I lifted his head to look at me. How about we go play a game? Matthew started nodding his head and climbed off the bed. I just need to talk to Jordan, Ryan, and Isaac. You can go set it up. He nodded his head, causing his blonde locks to bounce up and down. He walked out the room with the doctor, and the adults sat down. We should talk about you parents, Jordan suggested. I gave her a look signaling that I didn't want to talk about them yet. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Or something else, she said with a nervous chuckle. What happened? Still unsure of how I got in a coma, Uncle Isaac and I both waited for someone to answer. We just heard you scream. It started out as a scream of frustration. Then it was like a howl of pain. Jordan's voice cracked. Ryan shushed her, with his arms wrapped around his mate. You fainted, and we took you to the doctor. We tried to talk to you. We tried everything. The doctor said that nothing was wrong with you, but with your wolf, Ryan explained. So that's why I was in a coma. The adults all nodded. Why is Asher here? I asked hesitantly. I didn't tell anyone about him being my mate. Sean called him, Isaac said with a chuckle. I raised an eyebrow. Your mate was very jealous. I scoffed and rolled my eyes. Ex-mate, I said, putting emphasis on the X. Ryan stiffened and Jordan gasped. Ryan growled. He rejected me before he even knew To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. With a few tears streaming down my face, I wiped them away, letting go of the sorrow and having anger fill me. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Are you sure? Jordan asked. How could I not be sure? Instead of being a smart ass, I repeated his exact words. Alpha Asher Reed, reject you as my mate. I mocked in a deep voice. I'm gonna kill him, Ryan growled. I'll hide the body, Isaac said. Jordan smacked Ryan's arm. No one is killing anybody, or hiding any bodies. She glared at Isaac. You both have seen Asher these past 2 weeks. He's been looking like shit ever since he got here. I still don't understand why he was here in the first place. Mates give each other strength. With him near you, I figured it would help your wolf, Sean said from the doorway. I shot up and wrapped my arms around his waist. He hugged me tightly and inhaled my scent. You scared me. All of this has taken a toll on me and my wolf, I responded. He nodded in understanding. Then, I remembered what we were talking about and pulled away from Sean. You caught him. Yeah, I was just trying to help. And it worked, Sean argued. I slumped on my bed defeated. As much as I hate to admit it, Asher did help me in a way. Being here allowed his wolf to help mine. He left, by the way. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nobel. Hearts out thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I knew he wasn't gonna stay. He still has the redhead. I couldn't help but be slightly disappointed. Gee, good. I stuttered. What's wrong? I gave him a look. He freaking left me for the red-head werewolf. Sean looked confused. Then he laughed. You have that alpha wrapped around your finger. He barely left your side. He informed me. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. He never left. Sean nodded. He only left when one of us came in, to give us privacy or whatever. He slept in that chair. Sean pointed at the chair by my bed. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I turned to Jordan who nodded in confirmation. He didn't leave. What about his pack? He left Brian in charge, Ryan said with a shrug. You know, Jordan started. He really cares about you. And Matthew loves carrots, I said sarcastically. Oh my God. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I was supposed to play with him. He's taking a nap, Sean informed me. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. He doesn't know, does he? I questioned, even though I already knew the answer. Everyone shook their heads. I bent over and held my head in my hands. What am I gonna do? I asked aloud. Well, you're gonna have to tell him eventually. Better sooner than later, right? Sean said. I groaned. How do you even tell a kid that his parents are dead? That some wolves ripped them limb by limb, oh. I shouted as the burning pain spread around my body. It was stronger than before. The burning feeling increased around my whole body. Like when you get splashed with hot oil while cooking. Only, it was like oil was being splashed around inside of me, and I couldn't get away from it. I screamed in agony. I rolled into a fetus position and screamed. I closed my eyes to see the redhead again, kissing Asher. I let out a miserable howl as the pain faded. Panting, I opened my eyes to see Ryan, Sean, Jordan, and Isaac watching me. They all had concerned looks on their faces. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. He was pissed. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Sean growled. I nodded. He left just so he could whore around with that redhead. How dare he put you through that pain again? He shouted as his eyes flashed golden. I have a feeling that his stance on us as my relationship changed. Again. This happened before? Ryan asked. I nodded. You have some explaining to do. I sighed and told them everything. Chapter 14, Genevieve. Ryan growled, interrupting me for the 28th time. He said it was your fault. Ryan shouted. I just told them about the fight with Asa. I reluctantly nodded. I knew that Ryan's wolf was surfacing. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. If I accepted the rejection, then none of this would have happened. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. We wouldn't be connected anymore. If you accepted the rejection, then you might not be here right now. Asher wouldn't come here. You would have died on that hospital bed, Sean said. Knowing that what he said is probably true. What happened next? Jordan asked. She's been silent this whole time, most likely processing everything. Jordan will take her time analyzing every detail. She will also try to see it in his point of view. I decided to ask her what she thought about the whole situation when we are finished. Nothing really. Ryan came in and told us about the attack. I finished with a shrug. I never want to see him near my niece again. Isaac shouted, his eyes flashing golden. It was obvious that all the men were fighting their wolves for control. Ryan looked scarier than Jason, bedewed with the hockey mask and chainsaw. Isaac looked kinda funny since he's so little. It's funny to see him angry. Sean knew everything already, so he was normal, and Jordan seemed surprisingly calm. Considering that she's pregnant, I thought Jordan would be more angry. I thought wrong. I never want to see him anywhere. If he comes in my territory, Ryan growled, then continued. I'll rip off his tail with my teeth, shove him through his left ear, and pull it out the other ear. I shuddered at the visual. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Unpleasant. Laughter erupted through the room, until everyone froze. Their eyes were unfocused, telling me that they were communicating in the mind. Blink. Isaac angrily growled, the noise echoing in my ears. We'll be back, Isaac announced as he stood up with Sean and Ryan. They silently walked out the room, leaving me alone with Jordan. What was that about? I questioned. Jordan plastered a smile over her frown. Nothing. She obviously lied. I didn't feel like pressing on the subject, so I just nodded. About Asher. Jordan started. What are you thinking? Her thoughts on the subject of my mate were very important to me. I knew that she would be more level-headed than the guys. She took a moment to gather her thoughts. I sat on the hospital bed in silence. For once, I don't think you guys as mates was a good idea. I nodded for her to continue. I think he's a bad mate. Honestly, I agree with Isaac and Ryan. He should never come back here. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I questioned. Jordan nodded without hesitation. Why? Jordan and Ryan have always been rooting for mates. That mates needed to be together. Why not now? I tried to see it from his view, but I just can't think of any reason for someone to do that. He stayed with you while you were in the coma, but that's all he did. He just sat in the chair next to you, like for moral support, Jordan explained. I listened intently, hanging on to every word. The way he rejected you, how he slept with that girl, what he said to you, none of that is him being a good mate. And he left your side to go back to that girl, when he knew that it physically pains you when he's with her. Tears began to gather in my eyes. Jordan paused and took a deep breath. I've looked for some excuse, an explanation, anything. But there's nothing that could have made him treat you like that. There's no reason for him putting you through that pain, Jordan said softly. I let out a sob and my tears rolled down my cheeks. Jordan whispered soothing words in my ears and rocked us back and forth while I cried. I was surrounded by her scent, and I found myself inhaling it for comfort. When my sobs died down and my tears dried, I pulled away from Jordan's warm embrace. Thank you, I said sincerely. Jordan asked, for being here, for what you said. I took a deep breath and continued. Without my mom here, I wouldn't know what to do. So thank you, I said as I wrapped my arms around her round baby belly. You're welcome, Jordan said and kissed my head. I pulled away from her once again. I wiped my tears and chuckled. This is too emotional, I joked. Jordan laughed and wiped the few tears that escaped her eyes. I'm pregnant. What's your excuse? Jordan asked. My mate is a bastard, Genevieve. Asher's voice echoed through the castle. I looked at Jordan and rolled my eyes. Speaking of the devil, I mumbled. I got off the bed and walked to the door. I reached for the handle, but it was pulled open in front of me. Asher stood in the doorway sweaty and panting. His hair was messy, sticking out in weird angles. We stared at each other for a second before he was yanked backwards by one of the guards. Let go of me. She's my mate, Asher threshed in the guard's hold. Eve, tell this guy to let go of me, Asher said and stopped moving. Good evening, Princess. Scott. The guard greeted me. Do you know this young man? Scott asked. I sighed and nodded at the guard. Yes, this is Alpha Asher of the Blue Moon Pack, I explained. Scott nodded and released Asher. I'll be going then, Scott said, and walked off like it was casual to assault an alpha. I looked at Asher, who was awkwardly scratching his head. We need to talk. Asher nodded in agreement. I led him to one of the guest rooms and I sat on the bed. I'm glad you're okay. I was so Asher started. Don't, I harshly interrupted him. Don't even act like you cared for 1 second. What are you talking about? Of course I cared. And I still do care. You're my mate. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I chuckled dryly and rested my back against the headboard. We aren't mates. What? Asher said, confused. We are mates. Don't you remember? Don't you feel it? Asher asked while walking towards me. I glared at him. Yeah, I remember and I can feel it. Asher grinned, but it quickly disappeared when I continued. I remember you rejecting me when I first saw you, and I felt you and that redhead the same day. And I felt it again today. I felt in control. My wolf didn't fight me for control. She understood my reasoning for being this way. Eve, Asher said softly. I swear it wasn't like that. Just let me explain. Asher pleaded. I got off the bed and shoved him away from me. My hands sparked, but I ignored it. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. There is nothing to explain. You rejected me. You slept with that girl. You knew what this to me, yet you still did it. I shouted angrily. I didn't sleep with Wendy. You're just gonna lie to me now. I shouted in disbelief. I fucking felt it. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Don't even try to lie to me. What I felt, everything. I shoved his chest again and the burning feeling came back. He stumbled back and hit the wall. I felt my anger fading away and being replaced with hurt. I see. Can't go through that again, I said while my voice was breaking. Asher looked at me with a broken expression. I swear you won't go through anything like that. I shook my head, not letting myself believe anything that came out of his mouth. Please, Genevieve, just let me explain. I can't, I said quietly. I moved my gaze so that I was looking into his grey, blue eyes. His eyes were silently begging me to give him a chance. I took a deep breath. I won't feel anything if I accept his rejection. I Princess Genevieve Burke, don't Eve. Asher grabbed my face in his hands, sending tingles through my whole head. It was burning, but it felt so good. Asher gasped, signaling that he felt it too. He caressed my cheeks with his thumbs, making the tingles stronger. Ingrid was stirring inside of me. It wasn't like anything I've felt before. Suddenly it was too much, and my brain shut down. Don't let the story end. Subscribe to continue our Wolfpack legend.